I'm standing in a wedding dress that cost $3,000, and my mother just told me she sold my house. Not asked. Not discussed. Sold it. The venue is perfect. White roses everywhere, string lights that look like something out of a magazine, guests already seated and smiling. Everything I saved for. Everything I planned. And in one sentence, my mother just ripped it all apart. But let me back up because you need to understand how we got here. You need to see what kind of family does this to their own daughter on the day she's supposed to be happy. My name is Alyssa Morgan. I grew up in New Jersey, in one of those neighborhoods where everyone pretends to be close but nobody actually knows what's happening behind your front door. My childhood looked normal from the outside: backyard barbecues, school plays, family photos that made us look like we actually liked each other. We didn't. My older sister, Riley, was the star. Always. She got the attention, the praise, the endless second chances. I got responsibilities. While Riley spent summers at music festivals in California, I worked double shifts at a diner in Newark, saving every tip, every paycheck. My parents had this thing they'd say whenever I complained: Riley is special. She deserves experiences. You're strong, you'll figure it out. Translation? Riley gets handed everything. You get nothing. I believed them for longer than I should have. Thought maybe they were right. Maybe I wasn't special enough to deserve help. So I worked 60-hour weeks sometimes. Community college while other kids partied. Scholarships I had to reapply for every semester, writing essays about my goals while Riley posted vacation photos and racked up credit card debt our parents quietly paid off. By 25, I had bought my own house. Small place. 2 bedrooms in Connecticut, about an hour from where I grew up. Nothing fancy, but it had a porch and a backyard and a mailbox with my name on it. The first thing in my life that was actually mine. I remember moving in on a Saturday morning. The walls were bare, the furniture was secondhand, and I stood in the middle of the living room feeling something I'd never felt before. Pride. Not the kind you fake for Instagram. Real pride. The kind that makes your chest hurt because you worked so hard for it. I called my parents to tell them. Thought maybe this would be the moment they'd finally say they were proud of me too. My dad said, "That's good." My mom said, "Don't forget to get insurance." Riley didn't even respond to my text. That should have told me everything. But I made excuses for them. Told myself they were just bad at showing emotion. That deep down they cared. Then I met Ethan. He was from Colorado. Worked in tech for some startup I didn't fully understand. We met at a coffee shop in Hartford. One of those meet cuties that feels fake when you say it out loud, but it happened. He spilled his drink. I helped him clean it up, and somehow we ended up talking for 2 hours. He was different. Paid attention when I spoke. Remembered things I mentioned in passing. Never once made me feel like I was the backup plan. We dated for 2 years. He moved into my house after 8 months, and it felt right. Like I was finally building something with someone who actually chose me. One weekend, we drove to Maryland. He proposed by the harbor, sunset behind us, ring that wasn't expensive but felt priceless because he'd saved for it himself. I said yes before he finished the question. When I told my family, they stared at the ring like it belonged to someone else. My mother's face went blank. My father nodded once and left the room. Riley said, "Congrats," but her tone said she didn't mean it. I should have known something was coming. I just didn't know it would happen on my wedding day. Ethan wasn't like the men I'd dated before. The others had been safe choices. Guys who worked local jobs, never asked too many questions, and disappeared after a few months when they realized I didn't have time for drama. I was always working, always saving, always one emergency away from losing everything I'd built. Ethan made me feel like I could stop holding my breath. He had this way of listening that felt genuine. When I talked about my family, he didn't brush it off or tell me I was overreacting. He'd lean forward, eyes focused, and say things like, "That must have hurt," or "You deserved better than that." For the first time, someone validated what I'd felt my entire life. We fell into a routine quickly. He'd cook breakfast while I got ready for work. We'd watch terrible reality TV at night and argue about which contestants were the worst. On weekends, we'd drive to random towns in Connecticut and explore antique shops, diners, places that felt far away from everything. It was normal, comfortable. But looking back now, there were moments that didn't fit. Like the time he asked about my house paperwork. We were sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through mail, and he casually said, "Do you keep all your documents organized? Deed, insurance, that kind of thing?" I laughed. "Why, you planning to steal my house?" He didn't laugh back, just smiled a little and said, I'm just thinking about our future. We should make sure everything's protected. At the time, it sounded responsible. Sweet even. Like he was planning long-term with me. Now I realize he was gathering information. There were other things too. Small things I ignored because I wanted so badly for this to work. Late-night phone calls where he'd step outside, voice low, saying it was work stuff. Questions about how much equity I had in the house. That one time he asked if my parents were listed on any of my accounts, and when I said no, he looked relieved. Then there was the way he acted around my family. Most people who met them could sense the dynamic within minutes. The way my mother spoke to Riley versus how she spoke to me. The way my father barely acknowledged I existed unless I was useful. Ethan never said a word about it. When my mother made passive-aggressive comments at family dinners, "Alyssa's always been so independent, haven't you, sweetheart?" He'd nod along. When Riley showed up late, hi, clearly in trouble again, and my parents fawned over her like she was a returning hero, Ethan would just squeeze my hand under the table. I thought he was being supportive, keeping the peace. Now I know he was staying in their good graces. The proposal happened on a Sunday in October. We'd driven down to Maryland for the weekend, stayed in a cheap hotel near the harbor. The air smelled like salt and fried food, and the sunset turned the water gold. He got down on one knee right there on the dock, tourists walking past, some kid eating ice cream and staring at us. The ring was simple. Silver band, small stone. Nothing flashy. "I know it's not much," he said, hands shaking, "but I wanted to give you something that's just ours. No one else's opinion. No one else's money. Just us." I cried. Ugly, grateful tears. Because for once, someone wanted to build something with me that didn't involve my family's approval or Riley's shadow. I said yes. He kissed me. Strangers clapped. It felt like the beginning of everything. When we got back and told my family, the room went cold. My mother stared at the ring like it offended her. My father muttered, "Well, that's something," and walked away. Riley barely looked up from her phone. Ethan didn't seem bothered. He smiled, squeezed my hand again, and said, "They'll come around." They didn't. The night before the wedding, his phone rang at 11. He glanced at the screen, his face shifted, just for a second, and he stepped onto the porch. 20 minutes later, he came back inside. I asked who it was. He said, "Just work stuff. Nothing important." But he didn't look at me when he said it. And that's when I should have known. The morning of my wedding started perfect. Too perfect. The sky over Virginia was the kind of blue you only see in movies. No clouds, no humidity, just clean, open air that smelled like fresh-cut grass and expensive flowers. The venue looked exactly how I'd imagined it. White chairs in neat rows, an archway wrapped in ivy, tables set with candles that hadn't been lit yet. My bridesmaids were running around adjusting centerpieces and fixing their makeup. The photographer kept snapping candid shots, laughing, saying things like, "This is going to be beautiful." I was in the bridal suite, staring at myself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly. Hair pulled back, makeup done by someone who actually knew what they were doing. I looked like a bride, like someone who had her life together. I felt like I was about to throw up. Not because of nerves, not because I was unsure about Ethan. Because my family still wasn't there. The ceremony was supposed to start in 2 hours. Guests were already arriving. Ethan's parents were greeting people at the entrance, smiling, hugging everyone like this was the happiest day of their lives. My side of the venue? Empty. I texted my mother. No response. Called my father. Straight to voicemail. Riley didn't even have her red receipts on. My maid of honor, Jenna, tried to calm me down. "They're probably just running late. Traffic, you know?" But I knew better. Being late was a power move for my family. It was their way of reminding me that even on my day, they controlled the narrative. At 11:30, an hour before the ceremony, they finally showed up. No apologies. No rush. My father walked in wearing a suit that looked like he'd grabbed it off the claret rack that morning. Riley had sunglasses on indoors and smelled like she'd been drinking since breakfast. And my mother? She looked perfect. Hair styled, makeup flawless, wearing a dress that probably cost more than mine. She walked in like she owned the place, smiled at a few guests, then made her way to the bridal suite. I was fixing my veil when she came in. "Alyssa," she said, closing the door behind her. "We need to talk." Her tone was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm you use when you're about to deliver bad news, and you've already decided you're not going to feel guilty about it. I turned around. "Mom, the ceremony's in an hour. Can this wait? She smiled. Not a real smile. A practiced one. The kind she used when she wanted people to think she was kind. No, she said. It can't. Something in her voice made my stomach drop. She stepped closer, glanced at the door to make sure no one was listening, then looked me straight in the eyes. We sold your house. For a second, I thought I misheard her. I laughed. Nervous, confused laughter. What? We sold your house, she repeated, slower this time, like I was a child who needed things explained carefully. The one in Connecticut. It's done. The paperwork went through last week. My brain couldn't process it. The words made sense individually, but together, they didn't form anything real. What are you talking about? I said, my voice shaking. You can't sell my house. It's my house. She sighed, like I was being difficult. We transferred the money to Riley. She needed it more than you do. You're getting married. You'll be fine. But Riley's in trouble, Alyssa. Real trouble. We had to help her. The room tilted. You what? Riley made some mistakes, my mother continued, folding her arms. Business things. Money she owes. People who aren't patient. We needed to get her out of the country for a while, let things cool down. The house was the fastest way to do that. I felt like I was underwater. Everything sounded muffled, distant. You sold my house, I said again, trying to make the words feel real. Without asking me. We didn't need to ask, she said simply. It's handled. You can't just... I stopped, my hands shaking. That's illegal. You can't sell someone's house without their permission. Her expression didn't change. We didn't forge anything, Alyssa. Everything was legal. That's when the second wave hit. If they didn't forge my signature, that meant someone else signed. Someone who had access. Someone I trusted. My chest tightened. Who signed it? I whispered. She didn't answer.
Mom.
Who signed the paperwork? She adjusted her purse strap, looked at me with something close to pity, and said, You should make a scene today. It'll embarrass the family. Then she turned and walked out. I stood there, alone in a wedding dress that suddenly felt like a costume, and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I called my bank. Then the realtor. Then anyone I could think of who might tell me this was a mistake, a misunderstanding, something fixable. But every call confirmed the same thing. The house was sold. The money was gone. And the signature on the documents? It wasn't my mother's. It was Ethan's. I don't remember walking outside. 1 second I was in the bridal suite, phone pressed to my ear, listening to a realtor confirm that yes, the sale was legal, and yes, the funds had already been transferred. The next second I was standing in the parking lot, gravel digging into my heels, trying to breathe. The sun was too bright. The air was too hot. Everything felt wrong. Guests were still arriving. I could hear music starting inside, someone testing the sound system. Laughter. Normal wedding sounds. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but something made me click. It was a photo. Ethan. Standing in my house. My empty house. The furniture was gone. The walls were bare. He was holding a set of keys, smiling at the camera like he'd just won something. The text below it said, Told you we'd take care of it. No name. No explanation. Just proof. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. Then I called Ethan. He answered on the second ring, voice cheerful. Hey, babe. Everything okay? I'm about to head to my spot. Where are you? I said. Silence. I'm, getting ready.
Why?
What's wrong?
Where are you?
Alyssa, what's going on? Did you sell my house? The pause that followed told me everything. Look, I can explain. Did you sign the paperwork? My voice cracked. Did you take my house and give it to my sister? It's not like that, he said quickly. Your mom called me a few weeks ago. She explained the situation with Riley. She said you'd understand once everything calmed down. She said what? Ethan? She said Riley was in real danger. That if we didn't help her, something bad would happen. She asked me to sign because you were too stressed with the wedding and she didn't want to put more pressure on you. I laughed. It came out harsh, bitter. And you believed her? She's your mother, Alyssa. I thought. You thought you'd just hand over my house without telling me? They promised they'd pay us back. His voice rose, defensive now. They said it was temporary. A loan. I didn't think. You didn't think, I repeated. You didn't think to ask me. You didn't think to check if this was okay. You just did it. I was trying to help your family. It wasn't your decision to make. Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I thought you knew. I thought this was something you were all planning together. You thought I'd sell my own house to bail out my sister and not mention it. Your mom said. Stop saying that. I was yelling now and I didn't care who heard. Stop hiding behind what my mother said. You signed away my house, Ethan. The one thing I built on my own, and you just gave it away. Alyssa, please. Come inside. We'll figure this out after the ceremony. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I turned around, and that's when I saw them. My mother and Riley, standing together on the far side of the courtyard, half hidden behind a column. They weren't panicking. They weren't rushing over to explain. They were just watching, waiting. Like this was all part of some plan, and they were curious to see what I'd do next. I walked toward them. Slow, deliberate steps. My dress dragged across the gravel, picking up dust and dirt. I didn't care. When I reached them, my mother smiled. That same practiced, empty smile. Alyssa, she said softly, you need to calm down. People are staring. You sold my house. We helped Riley, she corrected. There's a difference. I looked at my sister. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Just stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight, looking anywhere but at me. Riley, I said, voice shaking. Say something. She finally looked at me. And for a second, just a second, I thought I saw guilt. But then she shrugged. I didn't ask them to do it, she said. But yeah, I needed the money. And honestly, you were always going to be fine. You always are. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet, cold break. I turned back to my mother. Where's the money now? Riley's already left for California, she said simply. She has a flight to Europe tomorrow. This was the only way to get her out safely. Out safely. I repeated. What did she do? My mother's expression hardened. That's not your concern. It is when you use my house to cover for her. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, so only I could hear. We sold your house, and we need you to keep quiet about it. You owe us that much. I stared at her, really looked at her. This woman who raised me, who told me I wasn't special enough to deserve help, who watched me work myself into exhaustion while Riley got everything handed to her. And now she was telling me I owed her for stealing from me. I took a breath, then another. When I spoke, my voice was steady. Watch me. I turned around, still in my wedding dress, and walked away. Away from the ceremony. Away from Ethan. Away from the family that only saw me as something to use. Guests were staring now. Whispers spreading. Someone called my name. I didn't stop. I got into my car, still parked by the entrance, and sat there for a moment. Then I opened the glove compartment. Inside was a folder. Documents I'd been collecting for months. Recordings. Screenshots. Bank statements. Because part of me always knew something like this was coming. I just didn't know when. I started the engine and drove. Not away. Toward something better. I didn't go far. Just to a hotel 20 minutes from the venue, one of those budget chains off the highway where nobody asks questions. I checked in still wearing my wedding dress, and the guy at the front desk pretended not to notice. The room was basic. Stiff sheets, fluorescent lighting, a TV bolted to the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the folder. Everything I'd been collecting was here. Bank statements showing transfers I didn't authorize. Text messages between my mother and Riley that I'd screenshotted from my mom's phone during Thanksgiving when she left it on the kitchen counter. Emails from the realtor that Ethan had forwarded to himself and accidentally CC'd me on 3 weeks ago. I'd ignored it then. Told myself it was a mistake. It wasn't. But what I didn't have was the full picture. I knew my house had been sold. I knew Riley needed money. What I didn't know was why. So I called the one person who might actually tell me the truth. My cousin Marcus. He was Riley's age, grew up 3 houses down from us in New Jersey. We weren't close, but he'd always been honest with me. Brutally so. The kind of person who'd tell you when you had food in your teeth even if it embarrassed you. He answered on the 4th ring. Alyssa, you okay? I thought you were getting married today. I need you to tell me what Riley did. Silence. Marcus. Please. I know she's in trouble. I need to know what kind. He sighed, long and heavy. You sure you want to hear this? Yes. She's been stealing from her job. For months. Maybe longer. My stomach dropped. Stealing what? Money. Client funds. She worked for that boutique consulting firm in Manhattan, the one your parents kept bragging about. Turns out she was moving money between accounts, covering it up with fake invoices. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones. By the time they noticed, she'd taken over $200,000. I couldn't breathe. They filed a report, Marcus continued. Police are involved. She's got maybe a week before they issue a warrant. Your parents knew. They've been scrambling to get her out of the country before it goes public. And my house paid for that. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm sorry, Alyssa. I wanted to tell you sooner, but your mom made it clear that if I said anything, I'd be cut off from the family. And my parents, they backed her up. Of course they did. There's more, Marcus said. Riley's not just running from the law. She owes money to people who don't go through courts. She got involved with some guy who runs a sports betting operation. When she couldn't pay him back, she used her address to have packages delivered.
Documents. Cash.
I don't know all the details, but it's bad, Alyssa. Really bad. I felt numb. So my house didn't just bail her out, I said slowly. It bought her an escape. One-way ticket to California, then Europe. Your mom already got her a new passport under a slightly different name. Legal enough to travel, hard enough to trace. They've been planning this for months.
Months.
While I was picking out wedding invitations and tasting cakes, my family was planning to rob me. Does Riley feel bad about any of this? I asked. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. She told me you'd be fine. Said you always land on your feet. Said she needed it more. Those words. The same one she'd said to my face an hour ago. I thanked Marcus and hung up. Then I sat there, staring at the hotel wall, trying to process what my family had become. No, what they'd always been. I just finally saw it clearly. My phone buzzed. Text from Ethan.
Please call me. We need to talk.
I can fix this. I deleted it. Another text, this time for my mother. You're embarrassing yourself. Come back and finish the ceremony. We'll discuss this later. I blocked her number. Then I opened my laptop and started searching. Riley's employer. The consulting firm in Manhattan. It took 10 minutes to find their main office number, another 5 to get transferred to their legal department. Hi, I said when someone finally answered. I have information about an employee theft case involving Riley Morgan. I'd like to speak with whoever's handling the investigation. They put me on hold. While I waited, I pulled up the screenshots. The bank transfers. The emails. Everything. When the investigator came on the line, I said, my name is Alyssa Morgan. Riley's my sister. And I know exactly where she's going. I gave them her flight information. Her itinerary. The name she'd be traveling under. Everything my mother thought I didn't know. Because here's the thing about being the invisible child, the one nobody pays attention to. You learn to listen. You learn to watch. And you learn to remember. When I hung up, my hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt calm.
Clear.
They wanted me to stay quiet? They wanted me to let this go? I opened a new tab and started typing. Not just to the police. To Ethan's employer. To the bank. To every person who needed to know what had been done. This wasn't revenge yet. This was just honesty. But the look on their faces when everything fell apart? That would be the payoff. The call started 2 hours later. First my father. Then Ethan. Then my mother from a different number since I'd blocked her original one. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat in that hotel room and did something I should have done years ago. I documented everything. Not just the house sale. Not just Riley's crimes. Everything. Every time my parents chose Riley over me. Every dollar they spent on her experiences while I worked double shifts. Every dismissive comment. Every time they made me feel small. Every moment they treated me like I was lucky to be part of the family. I wrote it all down. Dates, details, witnesses. Then I recorded a video. Just me, sitting on the hotel bed, still in my wedding dress, explaining calmly what had happened. No crying. No yelling. Just facts. My name is Alyssa Morgan. I started. Today was supposed to be my wedding day. Instead, I found out my family sold my house without my permission to fund my sister's escape from fraud charges. My fiancé helped them do it. This is my story. I talked for 20 minutes. When I finished, I didn't post it. Not yet. But I saved it. Just in case. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Alyssa Morgan? A woman's voice, professional. Yes. This is Detective Sharon Ortiz with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We received your call earlier regarding Riley Morgan. I need to verify some information with you. For the next hour, I told her everything. She didn't interrupt, just took notes, asked clarifying questions. When I finished, she said, "You understand that by providing this information, you may be called as a witness?" "I understand. And you're aware that your testimony could result in criminal charges against your family members?" "Yes." She paused. "Can I ask why you're doing this?" I looked at myself in the hotel mirror. Makeup smudged, hair falling out of its pins, wedding dress wrinkled and dirty. "Because they thought I'd stay quiet," I said. "They thought I owed them that. And I'm tired of being the person everyone takes from." "Okay," Detective Ortiz said. "We'll be in touch. Don't delete anything.
Don't talk to your family.
And Ms. Morgan." "Yes. I'm sorry this happened to you." I hung up and sat in silence. Outside, the sun was setting. The wedding would have been over by now. Reception probably in full swing if it even happened. I wondered if Ethan told the guests what happened. If my mother made up some excuse. If anyone actually cared that the bride was missing. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time it was a text. "Alyssa, it's Marcus. Your mom knows you called the DA. She's losing it. Just wanted to warn you." Then another message. "Also, I'm proud of you."
Someone needed to stop them.
I didn't respond. Just turned off my phone completely. There was a knock at the door. I froze. "Alyssa, I know you're in there." Ethan's voice, muffled through the door.
Please.
"Let me explain." I didn't move. "I made a mistake," he continued. "I should have told you. I should have asked. But I really thought I was helping. Your mom said, 'Stop hiding behind my mother.'" I shouted through the door. "You made a choice, Ethan. You chose them over me." Silence. Then, "I chose wrong. I know that now. But I love you, Alyssa. We can fix this." I walked to the door, but didn't open it. "You signed away my house," I said, voice steady. "You helped my family steal from me. You knew something was wrong, and you did it anyway. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal. Please. Go home, Ethan. I'm not leaving until we talk." I opened the door just wide enough to look at him. He was still in his suit. Tie loosened, hair messed up, eyes red like he'd been crying. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. "You want to talk?" I said.
Fine.
"Here's what's going to happen. I've reported everything to the police. Your involvement included. I've contacted lawyers about getting my house back or getting compensated for the fraud. And I've made sure that every single person who helped my family do this will face consequences." His face went pale. "Alyssa, you can't." "I already did. Do you have any idea what this will do to your family?" I laughed. Cold, sharp. "Do you have any idea what they did to me?" He stepped back, and I saw it, the moment he realized I wasn't going to back down. "You could have been honest," I said. "From the beginning. You could have told me what my mother asked you to do. We could have dealt with it together. But you didn't.
You chose to lie.
You chose to help them hurt me." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "So am I." I closed the door, locked it, and sat back down on the bed. For the first time in hours, I felt something other than anger. I felt free. Not happy. Not okay. But free. Because I wasn't carrying their weight anymore. I wasn't protecting people who'd never protected me. I was done being the family backup plan. And whatever happened next, I'd face it on my own terms. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. I ignored all of them and went to get coffee from the hotel lobby. That's where I met him. Not Ethan. Not my family. Someone I hadn't expected. "Alyssa?" I turned around. A man in his 30s, wearing jeans and a jacket, holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. "It's Marcus," he said. "Ethan's coworker. We met a few times at company events." Then I remembered. Quiet guy. Stayed in the background. Had helped me carry groceries into the house once when Ethan was out of town. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He held out one of the coffees. "I came to apologize." I didn't take it. "For what?" "For not warning you sooner." He set the coffee down on a nearby table. "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how to tell you, without making things worse." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Marcus glanced around the lobby, then lowered his voice. "Can we talk somewhere private?" 5 minutes later, we were back in my hotel room. He sat in the chair by the window. I stayed standing. "I'm not sure where to start," he said. "Start with why you're here." He took a breath. 3 months ago, Ethan started getting weird phone calls at work. He'd step outside, stay gone for 20, 30 minutes. When he came back, he'd be stressed.
Distracted.
I asked if everything was okay, and he brushed it off. Okay. Then about 6 weeks ago, I saw him printing documents in the office. Real estate paperwork. Your address was on them. I didn't think much of it until I saw your mom's name on the signature line. My chest tightened. I asked him about it, Marcus continued. He said your family was refinancing some property, that you knew about it. But something fell off. So, I started paying attention. And he was meeting with your mom. Multiple times. At coffee shops, parking lots, always somewhere away from your house. I followed him once. I know that sounds creepy, but I had a bad feeling. They were talking about timelines, about getting Riley out of the country, about how you couldn't know until it was done. I sat down on the bed. You knew they were planning this. I knew something was happening. I didn't know exactly what until 2 weeks ago, when I overheard Ethan on the phone with your mother. He said, "The closing is next Friday. Alyssa will be too busy with wedding stuff to notice." That's when I realized they were selling your house. And you didn't tell me? He looked down. I tried. I called you twice, but you didn't answer. I thought about showing up at your house, but I didn't know if that would make things worse. And honestly, part of me thought maybe you did know. That maybe this was some family arrangement I didn't understand. It wasn't. I know that now, he said quietly. When I heard what happened at the wedding yesterday, I felt sick. I should have tried harder. I should have. Why are you telling me this now? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Because I have proof. I took it from him. Proof of what? Emails between Ethan and your mother. Text messages. Recorded phone calls. He used to leave his phone on his desk during meetings, and I started recording them after I got suspicious. Everything you'd need to prove this wasn't just your mother's plan. Ethan knew exactly what he was doing. I turned the flash drive over in my hands. Why would you help me? I asked. You barely know me. Marcus was quiet for a moment. My sister went through something similar, he finally said. Different situation, but same kind of family betrayal. She tried to fight back, but she didn't have evidence. No one believed her. She ended up cutting everyone off and moving across the country. I haven't talked to her in 4 years. His voice cracked slightly. I couldn't help her, he said. But maybe I can help you. I looked at the flash drive again. Then at Marcus. This could get you in trouble, I said. Recording calls, following Ethan. I know. So why risk it? He met my eyes. Because what they did to you was wrong. And someone needed to have your back. For the first time since yesterday, I felt something close to hope. Not because the situation was better, but because I wasn't alone anymore. Thank you, I said. He nodded. What are you going to do now? I looked at the flash drive. Then I smiled. Not a happy smile. A determined one. I'm going to make sure they regret ever thinking I'd stay quiet. I didn't go back to Connecticut right away. Instead, I stayed in that hotel for 3 more days, going through everything Marcus had given me. The emails were damning. Conversations between Ethan and my mother dating back 4 months. Discussions about the best time to move forward, about keeping Alyssa distracted, about making sure the transfer happens before she has time to react. One email from my mother made my blood run cold. Ethan, I know this feels uncomfortable, but trust me, Alyssa will understand eventually. She always does. She's resilient. Riley isn't. We have to protect the one who needs it most. Ethan's response. I just don't want her to think I betrayed her. My mother's reply. You're not betraying her. You're saving her sister's life. She'll thank you one day. I read that exchange 5 times. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. Because yes, I'd hired a lawyer. A good one. The kind who didn't flinch when I explained what happened, who just nodded and said, let's get your house back. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she was everything my family wasn't, direct, honest, and on my side. This is fraud, she said during our first meeting. Clear, documented fraud. Your fiancé had no legal authority to sell your property. The fact that your family pressured him into it doesn't change that. Can we reverse the sale? We can try. It'll take time, but with this evidence? She tapped the folder I'd given her. We have a strong case. I'll file an injunction to freeze the funds. If Riley hasn't spent it all yet, we might be able to recover most of it. And if she has? Patricia's expression hardened. Then we go after everyone involved. Your mother, your sister, and yes, Ethan. They all participated in defrauding you. They'll all face consequences. I nodded. Good. One more thing, Patricia said. This is going to get ugly. Your family will fight back. They'll try to make you look vindictive, unstable, whatever they can use. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my mother's face at the wedding. The practiced smile. The casual cruelty. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. The injunction was filed 2 days later. That's when the real call started. My father, voice shaking. Alyssa, what are you doing? You're tearing this family apart. My mother, cold and furious. You had no right to involve lawyers. This was a family matter. Riley, crying. I'm stuck in California. They froze everything. I can't even buy a plane ticket. How could you do this to me? I didn't answer any of them. But I did send one text to my mother. You told me I owed you silence. I don't owe you anything. Then I blocked all their numbers. Again. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just going after them legally. I was going after Ethan's job too. Marcus had helped me draft an email to Ethan's employer, outlining his involvement in the fraud. Attached were the documents showing he'd used company time and resources to coordinate the house sale, the emails sent from his work account, the calls made during business hours. You don't have to do this, Marcus said when I showed him the draft. Going after his job, that's permanent. So, is what he did to me. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. I hit send. 3 days later, Ethan called from yet another new number. I answered this time. They fired me, he said. Voice flat. Defeated. I know. Alyssa, I lost everything. My job, my reputation, your house. I interrupted. Oh wait. That was mine. And you gave it away. Silence. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. You're not sorry you did it, I said. You're sorry you got caught. That's not. Did you love me, Ethan? Even a little? The pause told me everything. I thought I did, he finally said. You thought. Your family, they made it sound so reasonable. Like this was normal. Like I'd be the bad guy if I didn't help. And I wanted them to like me, Alyssa. I wanted to be part of something. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Congratulations. You were part of something, just not what you thought. What happens now?
Now, I said.
Now you deal with the consequences. Just like I had to. I hung up. That night, I got a call from Detective Ortiz. We arrested Riley this morning, she said. She tried to board a flight to London using a fake passport. Airport security flagged her. Is she in custody?
Yes.
She's being extradited back to New York. The DA is building a case for fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. With your testimony and the evidence you provided, we're looking at serious charges. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. What about my mother? I asked. She's under investigation. Conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly obstruction. We're still gathering evidence, but it's looking likely she'll face charges too. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat in the dark hotel room and cried. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because this was my family. These were the people who were supposed to protect me, love me, celebrate with me. And instead, they tried to destroy me. The difference was I didn't let them. I fought back. And for the first time in my life, I won. But winning didn't feel the way I thought it would. It just felt necessary. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Marcus. How are you holding up? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. I'm okay. Thank you. For everything. His response came quickly. You would have figured it out without me. You're stronger than you think. Maybe I was. Or maybe I just didn't have a choice anymore. Either way, I was done being the person my family could use and discard. I was done being invisible. And whatever came next, I'd face it standing up. The hearing was set for 6 weeks after the wedding that never happened. Civil court, not criminal. That would come later for Riley and possibly my mother. This was about the house. About getting back what was stolen from me. Patricia warned me it would be difficult. Your family will be there, she said. They'll have their own lawyer. They'll try to paint you as vindictive, as someone who's overreacting to a family disagreement. You need to stay calm. Stay focused. Don't let them get to you. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I could promise that. The morning of the hearing, I put on a simple black dress. Professional. Serious. The kind of outfit that said I wasn't here to play games. Marcus offered to come with me. Moral support, he said. I accepted. The courthouse was in Hartford, a gray building that felt appropriately cold and impersonal. Patricia met us outside, briefcase in hand, looking every bit the lawyer who didn't lose. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." We walked in together. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. My family was already there. My mother sat in the front row, wearing pearls and a cream-colored suit. She looked composed, elegant, like she was attending a charity lunch board meeting instead of a legal proceeding about fraud. My father sat beside her, looking uncomfortable in a tie that was slightly too tight. Riley wasn't there. She was still in custody in New York, awaiting trial. And Ethan? He sat 3 rows back, alone, staring at his hands. When I walked in, my mother's eyes met mine. She didn't look angry. She looked disappointed, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I sat down next to Patricia. Marcus took a seat behind us. The judge entered, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every kind of family drama imaginable. "This is a motion to reverse a property sale on the grounds of fraud," she began, reading from her notes. "Ms. Morgan alleges that her property was sold without her knowledge or consent. Let's hear opening statements." Patricia stood, clear, confident, laying out the facts. "The house was mine. The sale was conducted without my authorization. Ethan had signed documents he had no legal right to sign. My family had orchestrated the entire transaction to fund my sister's escape from criminal charges." She presented the emails, the bank records, Marcus's recordings. It was damning, clinical, undeniable. When she sat down, my family's lawyer stood. His name was Richard something. Expensive suit. The kind of lawyer my parents probably couldn't actually afford, but hired anyway to look legitimate. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a tragic misunderstanding between family members. Ms. Morgan's mother and sister acted out of genuine concern for Riley's safety. While the execution may have been flawed, there was no criminal intent. They believed they had Ms. Morgan's implicit consent, given the family's history of supporting one another." I nearly laughed out loud. Implicit consent. As if years of being overlooked and used somehow meant I'd agreed to be robbed. The judge looked unimpressed. "Did Ms. Morgan sign any documents authorizing the sale?" "No, Your Honor, but..." "Did she verbally consent?" "Not explicitly, but the family dynamic..." "Counselor," the judge interrupted,